but to make sure we hired a technician or an architect who has worked with Wexford County Council before to go over all the paperwork before we submit in the planning. So you.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Um, Lorenzo did some of the drawings, or did a lot of the drawings actually, for that grey water system, that design in general. You've been poring over it for weeks now, actually. Um, Lorenzo, do you want to share just something you said to me in the group about, how you had this limiting belief around what county councils would let you do?
Totally. Yeah, I totally had this limiting belief. I thought that oh, we want to do a grey water system. Like you can't do that sort of thing in Europe or North America or what have you. Well, we proved that wrong. So we put together a really nice. In fact, I'm going to share that on the group just after the call, so everybody can take a look as well. We kind of did the drawings much more in a kind of uh engineering style rather than the kind of quite colorful and visionary sort of renders that we do. And it turns out the council like being talked to in that way with boring black and white designs and very technical drawings. I think as much as anything, my understanding is that they just want to be sure that none of the uh, none of the grey water is going to end up in the watershed. Um, but yeah, feels like a really good step in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, I haven't pushed it over. I still have another meeting with the environmental agencies about that, but the guy, see, that it's not his, he's not the guy that needs to okay it. There's a panel of them that we're meeting in a few more weeks to okay
Oh,
it. So, don't get
all
too
right.
excited.
Oh God, the
But fingers
panel, the
crossed.
dreaded
Hannah.
Irish panel. Okay, you know what presentation I want you to watch on the Kajabi before you meet with the panel, Rebecca?
Oh,
Spiral
yes, please.
dynamics.
Oh,
Spiral dynamics. Watch the training on integral theory and spiral dynamics. The most important thing about talking to panels and governments and local government is, anyone know? Let's see who's been watching. Let's see who's been watching the recordings. Most important thing to realize is that every one of them is going to be at, or different groups of them are going to be at different developmental levels and therefore will have different value structures. And depending on the way Ken Wilber talks about it, the color that they're at, or the sort of like chakra that is activated in them, where their awareness is, certain things will make them completely stop listening to you, and certain other things that you say will make them want to support you and buy in and listen to the rest of what you have to say. So you really want to think about that. Most people who care about ecology in Ireland are horrible at this. They're just beyond horrible at it, because they're just telling people what they should do, what they shouldn't do, how bad they are for not caring about the things that they care about, and all the farmers and local people and Fianna Fáil TDs are like, "Fuck you guys, we're going to do everything we can to not let you succeed at all." Like so,
yeah,
don't do that.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Um,
Wouldn't be my style anyway.
I know, I know it wouldn't. But there's still some kind of tricks you can get in there if you think about it. Th- it's still really worth kind of crafting what you say and your messaging around that is what I would say. So
Absolutely. Thank
amazing.
you.
Lorenzo, would you say you learn more about grey water systems from the presentations you heard me give, or from actually sitting down and designing one to a high spec?
I would say both those things, and also seeing them for real here. Seeing three or four of them here as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, combination of seeing it in real life and then like sitting down and trying to do a drawing of one. It's like, oh, where does that go? Like That's how.
What's going to happen when
Yeah,
that does that? And
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah.
exactly.
That's how like designing things and building things is how you achieve mastery, right? Okay, that's amazing. Well done, both of you. That's very exciting. All right, why don't we dive into today's topic, which is, I guess, it could be called how to succeed in this program. I'm calling it how to build an impact-based business, make all the money you need, and never work a day again in your life. Does that sound like something people want to know about? Okay. Oh, I meant to skip these. Okay, so the first thing I want people to do in this program is learn permaculture design. Okay, because like I keep trying to point out, it's not really just about drawing pictures. It's about asking the right questions in the right order so that we can come into right relationship with nature, with ourselves, and one another. Okay? And this is unbelievably important at a kind of global level that we learn how to do this. Okay? So, right relationship, really, for anyone who's been in a happy marriage or has a lot of good friends and a good social life, a lot of it actually just boils down to honesty. How honest can I be with myself about who I am and what I really want? Yeah. Most people never actually answer those questions, right? They're either people pleasing or they're stuck in resentment with against other people, or they're convinced that, the government won't let me do it, or like the system isn't fair or whatever. They're stuck in one of those stories and they're never really being honest with themselves. So they have no ability really to even come into the right relationship with themselves, let alone a community of people and a piece of land. Yeah. And most people try to design their land before they design their life. So they go backwards, right? So one of the things that we've decided to do with Ananda for people who are stuck at this kind of stage of still being like, I actually don't really know what I want my life to look like and to be about, I highly recommend reaching out to Ananda. We've created like a questionnaire based around the big five personality traits, but it takes some other things into account that will just stop you really making all the same mistakes I did, right? And the reason you're almost guaranteed to make mistakes is that we all have patterns and we all fall back on them. And then the other reason that you're bound to make mistakes, actually, once you see, we're in a rapidly growing market. Those of us who care about the planet and want to design ecosystems and teach people real skills and do all these things that we know the world needs. We're in a rapidly growing market. And it's actually quite hard to stand back and decide which things to say yes to, right? So as a designer, I'm in a different place to all of you because I now have too many offers that I can to deal with. But that actually presents a new, and if I wasn't very now self-aware, I would be saying yes to the wrong things all the time, and that takes you in the wrong direction, right? And that's what I did before. So if you're kind of stuck at this, book a call with Ananda. But even if you're not really stuck at it, just realizing that the more clear you are about who you are, where you're going, the more likely it is that it will happen. Okay? And this is sort of true on a subjective spiritual level and on a material level. Yeah, so the subjective spiritual level is like if you can do kind of what I do and live like chapters of the book that you're imagining that your life turning into, those will start to come true. All right, like for some reason, I really want to meet Matthew McConaughey and design a ranch with him. It's just random. I read his book and I thought it was cool and I like him and people have told me I look like him all my life. So I decided recently, I was like, I want to fucking meet Matthew McConaughey and I want to like hang out with him and see if he has some land and like help him design it. I think that'd be fun. And like, I sometimes imagine that. I'll sometimes fall asleep like imagining that. Like, what would that be like? Right. And then recently, a couple of years ago, I got put in a movie. Then a guy goes to, then I meet a guy at the movie, and like I'm talking to him, and he's like, "Oh my God, I know a guy who knows Matthew McConaughey. He's just bought a ranch. I'm going to introduce you to him." Right? Hasn't happened yet, but that is actually kind of the magic of this. Like, imagine how many Instagram followers I'd get if I had like selfies with Matthew McConaughey, right? Like, so, and I really, really encourage people like just there's less competition at the top, right? Everyone's in the middle or down the bottom of the kind of pyramid fighting it out for like a scarcity of resources. And if you actually go up and you see the way a lot of people who are really successful, like have a lot of money and are having a lot of impact, they're just cruising, like, because they're just so focused on being themselves and they're so focused on positivity and they're so and the sooner, like I say, you can get it into your awareness that you're already living that life. And the sooner you can imprint those feeling tones onto your body, the more it's just going to fall into place and happen. Okay. The stunning research around how long it takes people to learn things, whether they feel like, if they feel like they're playing or they feel like they're working. So if you feel like you're working and practicing something, it's going to take ages. If you feel like you're playing, you're going to get it way faster, right? I've been watching Lorenzo designing Rebecca's place, and he's playing. So in a sense, now Lorenzo doesn't really need to worry about anything financial or purposeful ever again because he's building a skill that for him feels like he's playing, and he's bound to get better at it, and he's bound to stay at it because he really likes it and he's really suited to it. Okay. So this is this is crucial. Like, and some of you, like, I have a feeling Shasta is like just, you know, I know that already. Like, you know where you're going. So some people will be like, no, I'm not stuck there. I already do all those things. I know exactly where I'm going. Like, I'm ready to move on to the next level of this, right? But yeah, this is kind of like what I was saying here. Like, once you know what you want, commit. Now, knowing what you want is tricky because we change, right? So what I encourage people to do is, like I say, if you need to get help with an ANDA, then get it, because that questionnaire will really help you to um, focus on your strengths and weaknesses in doing this and avoid what are likely to be common pitfalls, right? Like, um, but this is vital because most people hugely overestimate what they can get done in a year, and then also hugely underestimate what they can get done in 5 years. And they never actually learn that lesson because they never see what you get to do in 5 years because they never stay at the same thing for 5 years. So they never actually prove themselves out of that frustrating, oh, it didn't really happen, or, so it's actually quite small what you get done in a year, but it can be massive what you get done in 5 years or 10 years. So what I really encourage people to do is to really think about this stuff and create a 5 to 10 year vision. And it can be anything. It can just be like me imagining how happy I'm going to be designing a ranch with Matthew McConaughey. Right, like, because I know that that's like, well, if I'm doing that, I'm also going to have made it in a bunch of other areas. Or it can be like a series of scenes and feelings that you kind of just live out. Like I say, as you're falling asleep, first thing in the morning, and then deeply internalizing this kind of somatic feeling of gratitude for getting to live this amazing life that you've decided that you're going to live. Yeah. Once you can kind of figure that out, that's called the law of assumption. I'm going to send a few books that are good on this as well for, again, for people who are, this is what all those kind of coaches on manifestation really are saying. But on a practical level, what you want to do is you want to create that kind of 10-year plan. You want to visualize it. You want to have a story around it. And then you want to pick something that's realistic to accomplish this year, right? And you want to set about trying to accomplish that. And the reason this magnifies so much is compound interest, right? Like compound interest is a fundamental law of the universe, right? It's how nature builds on itself. Okay, so as healthy ecosystems progress, they just harvest more and more energy. I talk about this all the time. Sunlight, water, and that harvesting of energy compounds, and that is what allows, and this is important, that is what allows for emergence, right? Like bees emerge into a healthy ecosystem that can support bees. Jaguars emerge into a healthy ecosystem that can support jaguars. And so, um, and this is fucking massively important because the reason I so desperately want everyone to learn to design is that permaculture design is allowing us to design in a way where emergence is possible. Okay. And it's worth stressing this point. Okay. It doesn't matter whether you end up being a teacher, a designer, a builder, a farmer, a coach, a community leader. It's vital that you learn to think like a permaculture designer because logically we're fucked, right? So one of the reasons so few people in the world who are kind of like smart and care about this stuff, one of the reasons none of them are doing anything is because they feel completely paralyzed because they're looking at all the facts about desertification and rising temperatures and sea levels and all these other things, and they're completely paralyzed, they're completely terrified. Because if you actually kind of look at it, growing population, increasing dependence on energy, blah, blah, blah. Like, we are fucked. But emergence changes everything. And we shouldn't try to think we know what will emerge if we start doing things properly, because that's like the Tower of Babylon. But we should design for it to be likely to occur. And if enough of us do that, a miracle might happen, or small miracles might start to happen. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I desperately want people to learn this design process. And the best way to learn it is on a piece of land. But I also really want people to understand, in a sense, that by designing in this way, you're learning a massively transferable life skill. So the next thing to mention there is get help, right? Um, get help because so that's why we're gonna create from now on, we're gonna create 2 extra calls a month for people who are struggling with design. Okay. So what I'm basically going to do is everyone who's in this community who kind of has a design pending or one that they're struggling to finish, we're going to take 2 of those designs every week for 4 weeks, or for every week on these alternate sessions, and we're going to go into designing them and teaching people the tools for how to do that. as we go, right? So we have already created all these trainings, but I can see that some people, and it's a typical hold up point, like need a push. It's like a bottleneck. Once you solve it, you now have a superpower, a massive superpower. Okay. The massive superpower is you can go onto any piece of land anywhere in the world and you know exactly the right questions to ask and you know exactly how to map out the land, get it onto a tablet or a device and bring it into this community. Because one of the things that's already happening in this community that I didn't originally anticipate is the emergence of mentors and the emergence of designers who are actually like probably very soon going to be better than me at some of this stuff. Okay, so once you can ask yourself or the landowner what they really want and actually follow that down and distill it into a story that everyone can feel, and you can map out the land and ask the right questions about the climate and all the permanent things on it, and you can bring that information into this group, you're now immediately tapped into a collective intelligence that's going to make you a better designer than almost any individual designer in the world. Okay. And I want people to get this. It's important to me. So if you care, I haven't set the times for those calls yet. If you care to sharpen your skills and to hone your design, message me personally, right? And I'm going to put you into a group for those alternate calls. We'll send the links anyway, and it's something people can tune in with, but I specifically want people on those calls who are stuck with either stuck with the programs and the technical stuff or stuck with the design itself. Okay. Now, and that's like, okay, so getting there to where you're like where you're like a permaculture designer who can design a life. That's we don't expect people to get there overnight. But the more seriously you take it, the quicker you'll get there. Okay. Um, okay, the next thing really, which is like your next superpower, but I don't think it can properly be done until you do the first one, is learning to teach. Yeah, so a lot of people get into permaculture and what they see are other places like the kind of Costa Rican retreat centers, and what they do is they teach courses and they charge people money and they kind of create a retreat experience and they teach permaculture as they go. And actually up to fairly recently, that was kind of the only business model that existed. But I look at teaching completely differently. I think firstly, it accelerates mastery. So Lorenzo and Ananda, one of the reasons that they're kind of moving quickly, more quickly than some people, is that they're here managing volunteers, right? So they're actually getting to take people who have less experience than them, organize them, have a bit of guidance from me or Jeremy or one of the local teams, and they're empowering themselves to be like, oh my God, you can get so much done. And this stuff really isn't that complex. And by explaining it to other people, they're building confidence and they're also developing a massive, like a massive life hack. Because if you think about it, think about how much of the planet needs to be regenerated. And think about how much work that's going to be. And then think about how many people in the world desperately need this type of education. Some of them need it on like a spiritual level. Some of them just like need to get out there and touch the soil and put their hands in the dirt and plant trees. And then a whole load of millions of other people need it because it's going to be a great livelihood. right? Like it's going to be a super useful thing to know how to do. So as we educate, we can build workforces, we can heal people, and this is like the other like massive thing, we can create huge amounts of value and massive amounts of interest in what we as designers do. Okay. Um, so so this is like uh this is a really important skill. So I'm just going to kind of go through the basics of what's involved in this here. So when I was out in LA, like I said, I did that course in Kelsey's place, and I think we talk a lot about storytelling, but story formats are a good one to think of. So one of the best formats for getting people's attention and getting them to take action is interrupting patterns, um, getting people to name and become aware of a problem that they were probably aware of already, aggravating the problem, taking it to its logical conclusion, and step four, presenting solutions. So this is basically just marketing. So pattern interrupt is like start the event. So like I'm out at this woman Kelsey's place in Los Angeles. I don't know anybody, and they're all these like super well-to-do LA types. And Kelsey's like, "Hey, this is my friend Neil. He does permaculture in Guatemala." Right? And it's like uh you know, oh fuck, how am I gonna do this? Um so so the first thing, like I say, is kind of pattern interrupt. So for me, a lot of the time, this is like just get people to do something unusual, right? So I was kind of feeling like subtle, so people were sitting around, and I just started doing this one where I like rub my hands. People who've seen me facilitate in person will have seen me do this. But I just started rubbing my hands, and I just started going around to each of them and being like, "Hey, you would massively be helping me if you would start rubbing your hands like this and keep doing it until everyone is rubbing their hand." And I swear you'll be doing me a huge favor. So instead of being like, "Hey, everybody, look at me," I started going around and I was like, and then they started getting it, and then suddenly I was the guy kind of leading the group, and I was just like, "All right, guys, I do this because I hate shouting." Um, and the way I start my permaculture courses that I teach at our farm in Lake Atitlan in Guatemala is we do these and we pick a different language and we count from three to one and we clap so we're all listening. So suddenly I got to like not sound like an egomaniac being like, the reason I think you should listen to me is um and I didn't get I didn't come across as like the guy who's being like, hey everybody, listen to me. Right. So just like it's a pattern interrupt. It's something they're like, oh, that's novel. Let me like pay attention over here. And there's really subtle ones you can do, and obviously you can do more extravagant ones. Um and then I just was like, I gave a brief introduction to myself, right? And what I actually said, and this is a good like storytelling technique, was I was like, "Hey guys, I'm Neil. I'm really honored to be here speaking to all you guys who look like you're doing incredible things. And to be honest, I'm a bit intimidated, and I haven't got anywhere near the kind of like accolades or success that a lot of you guys have. But what I have managed to do is build a farm and a business where I get all my organic food grown and cooked for me, and I don't have to do anything unless I want to. Um, and I get to live in a beautiful place in Guatemala in a community of friends, and we all grow food, and it's really, really nice. And I love sharing the things that made that possible with other people. Does that sound like it would be interesting to you guys? Right? And so they're like, oh, yeah, I would like to learn how you did that. Right? Um, and then I was basically like, I'd love to hear from all of you. And I would love to hear on a scale of 1 to 3, one being we're totally fucked, and 3 being like, no, everything's fine. Um, where do you think we are? And what's the problem that if you are a one or a two, what's the problem that, what are the problems that you're most worried about, right? And so they were all like, one, I think we're fucked. Nobody thought things were good, right? And then they all gave different problems. And then when it came back to me, I was able to be like, okay, well, I have good news. All of the different problems you mentioned are actually the same two problems, right? And the solution to those problems is actually much easier than people think it is. It's good design, right? So, and then I just talked through a series of like things that could be done that would be easy, that would start making an immediate impact around all these things that they're worried about. And it's like, when I started, I used to teach courses for like a week and not realize that a bunch of people there that were at the courses were potential clients, could be doing more cool stuff. And a lot of the time, nobody would take action. Now, in like literally 20 minutes, I can have like anyone there would have been like, yo, can you come over and do design for me? Can you show me how to build that? Like literally the whole room, right? And essentially, once people here are better designers and feel competent about that whole design framework and how to share it with people, then learning to transmit that information, but in the right way, like I say, in a way that moves people to take action. Now you're really, really able to do incredible things. Because one of the actions that people will take if they're like educated to the required level, or if you're providing enough value, is they'll they'll do a huge amount of work. Yeah. And that that to landowners is going to become huge, right? So my pitch, for example, I did this design in this woman Kelsey's place, right? Like we did this, I walked around the place, really listened to what she wanted, and then did a little drawing of it and got AI to render it, right? And straight away she was just like, oh my God, how do we do this? Right? And I was like, well, there's all kinds of things we could do. We could organize an event here, and we could, over the course of a week, we could implement this design. And while we're doing it, I'll train you how to do the designs, and I'll train this crew of landscaping guys how to do the installations, and then everyone who comes to the party will want that design done, right? And when I look at places like LA, and I'm sure Houston is the same, I'm sure Austin is the same, I'm just like, oh my God, anyone who's able to do that in a place like that with that sort of density of population can like basically make a money machine, a money model. Now, the next thing really, after you manage those two skills, is what I want people thinking about is building a team, right? Like, and that's where we jump back, or we hyperlink back to the first thing about knowing yourself, knowing where your strengths, passions, interests are going to lie, and starting to look at it like, wow, if you can have a team of people where someone knows how to teach, and someone knows how to organize events, and someone knows how to design, and someone else knows how to like build or implement, there's no there's really no limit in a sense to the kind of impact that you could have, and hopefully to the wealth you could create as well, right? So I'm gonna take a break here for a second, like hear from you guys, but then I'm gonna show you the designs that we've been working on for these like lightweight bamboo build it in 2 day houses, right? Because one of the things I want to do, I haven't built houses here for so long, is I want to find a way for the builders here to actually make some money. Because right now, as I always talk about, everything that they do is so labor intensive that they're never able to, like, charge just per job, do really valuable installations and get the fuck out of there. Right? So they're stuck working per day. All the gringos are complaining that they're lazy and they hate the gringos because they don't spend enough, because they don't like get paid enough, but it takes 2 years to build a house. So I'm going to show, I talked about this last week, but I'm going to show in a little bit the sort of designs we did for that. Because the more I think about it, the more I'm just like, well, there's all these problems that need to be solved and they need to be done on a local level. And that's why this course is about learning to design ecosystems. Because ultimately, if you're going to become financially free, if you're going to have a big impact, right, you're going to need to build an organization and a team around what you're doing. And to do that the best way possible, you need to design that organization like anyone finish that sentence for me?
Ecosystem.
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 Yay. Yeah, thank God. You need to design that organization like an ecosystem, not like a top-down monolith, which is the way modern corporations are designed. How does the ecosystem work? What's one of the laws about what is it? Shared fate. People know this ecological principle? Ecosystems work best when there's a high degree of shared fate, but also a high degree of individual sovereignty. And what that actually ends up meaning is there's a level of competition, but once things get established, there's a higher level of cooperation. And the success of one element often leads to the success of many others, but the failure of one element doesn't. Does that make sense in terms of how one would structure a collective or an ecosystem of people? Yeah? Okay. So do people, as you listen to that, can you see where you maybe are on this roadmap and identify the step that you most feel like is required next of you? That would be my question, and I'd love to hear from people on that.
The next step for building an organization or
The next, no, not necessarily. If you haven't even done your first design, then you don't need to be thinking about building an organization, right? But if we realize that we don't necessarily need to start an organization, but we want to be a member of an organization, we want to be part of an organization, right? But like I say, the key thing to doing that, before we do that, we do also want to learn self-sovereignty, self-governance. Okay, so for you in this space, given that you're interested in design, you live in Austin, the first thing for you to work on, I would say taking Ananda's questionnaire could be a very good idea. But I would also say getting this design job, doing this design, seeing how you do on it, honing that superpower of bringing that design into our design sessions and working on it. That would be a great next step for you. And you want to do it while simultaneously having in mind this really clear idea of where you want to be in 5 years. Good. Anybody else? Jamie, what do you feel like? Where do you feel like you're on that map?
So I am definitely in the designing the life plan. Um, my current target is on the event that we're trying to schedule. So I'm building out the roadmap to include my family plan alongside my business plan, alongside just having a life in permaculture. Because right now I got almost 200 chickens. I've got my meat birds. I rushed to get to the computer. I was out of breath when I logged on because I wanted to get the roof done on the new chicken coop. So like I'm half in the map and half in the mess, I guess is how I put it.
I love that. I love that. Um,
Working the dream.
yeah, look, man, it's like it's important for you, I would say, not to get your head out of the weeds. That's the wrong way to look at it, but to spend at least 2 hours a day in your important, not urgent category, right? So you being you will always have a chicken coop to build. You'll always have a raised bed to make. You'll always have something to do that can keep you busy. And we generally put those into like important, not urgent, or sorry, important, urgent category. It's like, I gotta get this roof on. I started. I can't stop now. Right? Great.
Yep. Yep. No,
Boys,
it is.
it's the people who spend a couple of hours a day in important, not urgent, right? Like they're the
Well,
ones.
I'm definitely lost in the play part. Like permaculture is my play, so it's definitely part of it, right? I'm trying to make the play and the design mesh up. So I am in sense doing it on this piece of property, Ron, which I love the idea of resilience that you're talking about because I'm trying to restore an old orchard. So I'm like putting in new trees where trees have fallen and looking at the long life cycle of the property. We're turning it into a family trust. So it meshes well with what you're talking about, building the structure of the not quite a business. I guess it would be like a trust.
It's
Uh,
what we were it's what we started talking about last week with Tavan. Okay. It's this idea of creating collectives that run along ecological principles. Um, and so essentially it's an extension of that idea. Um, you know, in your case, like I said to you, in your case, what that I think inevitably is going to look like in the short term is that you start bringing people to your place and showing them how awesome this life that you've created actually is, showing them the benefits for their kids. Um, you know, and I would say like really thinking about like what is my place within that ecosystem? If you don't want to design, like Lorenzo will design for you. That's what I mean about an ecosystem, right? Like you can just take Google Earth shots of properties and be like, I'm coming to the next design session because I want to work on this design with Lorenzo. If you do that and you're able to tell him where to put things, he'll do all the drawing, I'll check over it, and you can render it and build it for people. Like, so if you're stuck on a part, there's one of two things happening. A, you kind of got resistance to doing it, so you should do it. B, it's like really not in your zone of genius, and you should think who, not how, right? That's another continual mantra. Like, if you listen, I listen to a lot of podcasts, right, of these like wealthy, impactful kind of people. That's one of the things they like all say, like who, not how. And traditionally, people would have thought that and be like, well, I can't afford to have a full-time employee who's going to do my graphic design. It's like, no, you don't need to. You need to work out a workflow with Lorenzo or someone else who really likes drawing and like do a couple of designs sort of for free and then be like, okay, I'm going to start selling these designs, and I'm going to put in however much you need for your time to do the design and the report. But then ultimately, I'm going to use the design to sell my services, right? And then you can take that a step further and you're like, what's my service, right? And this again, where you really want to think, you're like, do I want to be the project manager? I don't want to be the project manager. I like teaching more. So I actually focus on teaching online and in my place here and in other places and sort of transforming land as I go. And as I do that, it naturally generates a load of leads for my business partner who's a project manager. So you just kind of got to know where to fall on the scale. And the way you do that is by first thing we looked at, know yourself. Know yourself. So it
Joint
might,
venture, right?
and so it might be no harm for you to get in touch with Ananda and fill in that questionnaire.
What's up, Paul?
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
that stuff is really useful because it'll show you your strengths and weaknesses, but it'll also show you like certain recurring patterns. Yeah, and where people like you are likely to get into trouble. And again, as we go in the direction of kind of like ecosystem builders, leaders, that stuff will really trip us up. So the earlier we can understand it, the better. Does it make sense?
Fine.
Shasta, what do you think about all of that?
Well, yes, I know it's about knowing yourself, and I think that I've been lucky enough to have taken a lot of that journey. I know sovereignty. I've free birthed children. I don't follow government rules. I'm outside of it. I'm on a different timeline and out of consensus reality. So that stuff, I'm there. I figured out a lot of stuff along the way by making many, many big mistakes. So I think that where I am at the moment is I just need to get a grip on design because I've got 100 hectares that I need to, whew, that I need to really understand better and know how to create perfection out of somebody else's messes. Because when you buy a farm, there are many follies that you can see. And I've been looking at all of these follies and just going, wow. I mean, invasive species, dams not necessarily built in the right places. And how do I create a design that takes into account some of the follies as well as some of the strengths that are already there and then make something amazing? I'm at an interesting place in my life as well. I lost my life partner 3 weeks ago, and I sat in this polarity of having, for the last couple of years, realized how much energy was being given to this cancer journey, and suddenly that energy is freed. And as much as I adored my partner, I'm just in this place of, oh, you know, one of my gifts is energy, just life force and energy. I don't run out of it. I can sit at a berth for 2 days and 2 nights like I did on the weekend and then still drive for 12 hours. And I don't know how I do it, but suddenly I've realized, okay, I can put this to use in ways now that are beyond previously. I've run businesses. I don't want to be in the city anymore. I don't want, I want to just farm. I want to make something magnificent. And I'm eyeing out the next door farm, which will be another 395 hectares. And then the village can come about. And then I can grow my fields of hemp to make hempcrete for buildings, because that's part of the bigger plan as well. And so I need to learn from you, Neil. I need to learn design. I need to, like you said, I don't want to make the same mistakes. I'm coming into this completely fresh with, I don't have debt on the land. I own it. Like I said, I'm outside of the normal systems, and that's been a negotiation of disentanglement throughout my life. And I'm now at a place where I've also got time. I have a multi-level marketing business that just makes money. And so I'm sitting needing to, I've got some income. It's less now that I don't have a husband, but I've got income, and I'm not focusing on anything except what can I do to create something incredible here. And I was interesting because in your questionnaire you said, "How do you want to change the world?" I don't. I want to change what's happening on the land and with myself, and be an example. It's not really for me about changing the world. There's a bifurcation of the timelines. The world will go one direction in big part, but there's a whole new happening on the other timeline. It just depends which timeline you jump onto and what reality you're creating. And on this other timeline, I'm seeing there's already something incredible happening that's completely alternate. And the people on that other timeline in this global melange of whatever, they can't even see. They can't see what's happening on this other timeline where we're creating the most incredible things. And so I'm just going to carry on that little timeline and be a little bit under the radar because, I don't like paying tax. And I'm just going to do life that way. So yeah, I'm here to learn, Neil, and I'm really excited to do it. And I feel a little bit behind because I'm sort of jumping in at this place, but that's a little bit of the story. And I'm just, Lorenzo, I'm going to need your help. I'm really going to need your help.
I'm right here. Thanks for sharing. It sounds amazing. Sounds so cool. And yeah, thank you for sharing so vulnerably as well. And yeah, condolences on your loss. And it's great to welcome you to the community. Amazing energy.
Amazing, amazing. So, okay, so you know exactly what you need to do, and you're obviously going to do it. Um, you are changing the world, by the way. Like people like you change the world, and it's probably because you don't actually have enough of an ego to think that that's what you're doing, but that is what you're doing. Um, and yeah, I mean, what I love that you've also done is every time I ask you about the land, you tell a different, like, emotive, evocative story. So that tells me that you're already doing what I'm talking about. You're already seeing this unfolding relationship. You already kind of, I think, know what it feels like, which is so important. And it's so important because what you'll see now as you work with Lorenzo and anyone else who's going to join those like specific design-based sessions, what you'll see is that really the design itself now is more or less just a formality. We just need to get good images of the land, understand the topography and the access, and list the elements that you want to have there. And what we'll start to see is that we're really just going to discover the design, and it lives in the intersection of what you most want and need and what the land most wants and needs. And that is how we come into right relationship with the land, right? And you're going to discover that very, very quickly. And then you're going to start teaching your first courses very quickly. And I think having your boy out here to help us build some houses and plant some food forests in the local community is going to help a lot with that. And it's going to help us a lot too. So exciting time, Shasta.
I'm looking forward to it. I was looking at all sorts of permaculture courses, and the reason that I chose this, Neil, is because of just what you've described, coming into communication on a deeper level with the land, and that it's not just about what we want to impress or change, but what does the land need. And also, I loved your take on telling the storytelling, and just those deeper facets. So that's why I'm here, and thank you.
It's wonderful to have you. It's wonderful to have you. Okay. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Anything else? Anyone else get struck by anything there?
I'm stuck. Totally stuck.
Yes,
So
Marie, you are. And thank you. Thank you for
the
saying that. And you're coming to those design sessions, by the way. We're going to prioritize getting your design done. But continue.
what I, the very first foremost thing I think I could relate to whoever it was that said something similar a few minutes ago is that I thought I was going to have a garden fence and a garden planted by, May, which is our kind of a planting season. Here it is, almost July, and I'm the guy I hired to put up the stuff that I just simply am too old and feeble to do. And a girl, I couldn't do it in the first place alone. I think it takes two guys. But he's made it into he overthought it. He's overthinking. And so now instead of a couple of $1,000, which I've already spent, he's talking about, another 3,600 on a roof that I think is way overbuilt. And I don't know how, I'm not going to have him proceed. I've got to find somebody else to finish it. But I kind of need a plan, and I don't know how to. I mean, I had a plan, I thought. We've had several conferences over this thing, and he keeps saying, well, we got to have another conference because he really doesn't want to put a roof on my garden. And let me explain why I want a roof. So somebody says, yeah, you need a roof. I live in a flight plan of Dulles and also a military airport. I also live in a valley with two mountains on a mountain on either side, with the interstate going between it, which means all of that crap on the interstate is floating over my land because that's the direction that the wind blows. So my air is totally, polluted. I want a cover over my garden. And he just fails to think that's necessary. And it's not, he's not paying for it. I am, but I can't get through. So that's why I'm stuck.
All right.
So,
Well, you know what? I mean, it sounds like what you have is a workforce issue.
yes.
So why don't we see if we can get some volunteers? I might even see if I can go to help Marie to build that roof and put in some of them swales.
Yeah, it's the fortunate part is that the garden is in a good spot to receive any water that comes its direction, and a lot does. So I haven't been too worried about the water yet, but we definitely eventually the next step is to start planning the land so that we sequester water, because I don't want it running to the Potomac anymore.
But
But
how is the
I
roof?
think, you know what I think would be a good idea? Finding 50 or 100 people who want to learn permaculture in West Virginia and
I have
getting
a bedroom apartment that's standing empty,
there
and a
we
big
go.
spot.
Well,
And below that is
what we'll
25.
do then is either Lorenzo or Jamie or Ananda or Oriano or whoever can go up there and host a permaculture boot camp.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
sounds
basically
good.
make it free for people. You just say, we're going to feed you, and we're going to teach you some amazing life skills, and we're going to transform this piece of land. Right. And then
Yeah,
everybody wins. And then whoever hosts that event will have a line of people outside saying, please come and help me.
did
Right.
I send you the plan that I found online that I based my garden, my structure on?
Yeah, please.
I thought I already sent it, but I'm not sure I did. I will send it again in case I didn't.
Send it
But
again. And I mean, the other thing that I think would be so cool to do there and would make such a massive impact is the swales through the pasture. Like
right,
that
right.
would be so impactful because you've got all that roof, you've got the Potomac right there, and you're at the bottom of a watershed. Like if we could do some like willow hedges with swales on contour. Like we could literally, if we hosted a like permaculture sort of boot camp there, um, we could easily get like we could get so much work done in like 3 days.
Hmm. Okay. Well, the post, I bought the post because that's what the guy said I needed, which I thought was still overbuilding, 6x6, extremely expensive posts.
All right, don't let him
Some
overbuild it. Me and Lorenzo and Ananda just built a greenhouse for how much money was it, Lorenzo?
It was $40.
$40.
If
They built a
that,
really nice
honestly.
greenhouse.
Yeah. It has to be deer proof too. And all the other critters that
Then it's
are
going
on
to be
my
more. It's going to be more than $40, but it's probably you can probably do it a lot cheaper than you think.
So I'll also send you pictures of what, but see, they've already dug the holes. They've already put the posts in the holes, but they're not planted because we have to have another conference on the roof. And I'm like, we've had 3 conferences already. Ah!
All right. Well, at the very least, we'll get those guys into one of the design sessions, right? So,
Okay.
like I was saying, we're going to pick a day. We're going to pick 2 days a month to do an extra session, like I said, just for people who are wanting to move designs forward. But it's very important that you come into those sessions with the right setup. So with your maps updated, the drawings that you've done so far. And
Right.
so if you get that stuff to me and get into one of those sessions, ideally with this guy who's saying he needs another conference.
I really don't. He's also put off the work. I paid him for painting a wall on a shed that he repaired. Paid him a lot for work he hasn't done yet.
All right, well, in that case, I think we should just look at the first option then.
Yep.
Um,
Something that, that makes
how far
sense.
away is West Virginia? How long does it take to get West Virginia from like New York or Austin or somewhere?
Um, we're actually an hour from Washington, D.C., where I live.
Oh, we're from Washington.
Yeah, so we're in the Dulles air circling thing, when they land and take off, and uh, Dulles Airport. So that
Okay.
gives you probably the best reference of how close we are to civilization.
Yeah, that's
And
cool.
Probably be about 6 hours
from where?
From where I'm at, from New York.
Where?
I'm
Oh,
in
New
Central
York.
Yep.
Yeah, we're in the Eastern Panhandle, so we're not part of the rest of West Virginia. So we're between Maryland and Virginia. Used to be Virginia, where I live, until the Civil War, and then they split. So,
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Marie, let's you and I have a conversation about
Mhm.
about those next steps because I think that could be a really cool thing to look at doing, and I think a lot of people will want to come out and help us. So why don't we have a little powwow about that, and then any of you guys who happen to be not so far away, guys or gals, it could be those types of events are going to be the more of them that we as a collective can do, the better because it's the best way to learn to lead those events is to go to those events.
And I never got the drone pictures. I have all the other pictures that you sent me, but I don't. And I took some other pictures, but they're not very good. Of trying to get the idea of how the slopes and things.
Well, the slopes, we have all that. We
Yeah.
have all the slopes. We have all the topography.
Right.
So we actually have great information. So I can bring it up here really quick, just so Shasta, this will be good for you to see as well. I'm just gonna find your design.
By the way, how big is a hectare?
Say again.
When she's 100 hectares, how does that compare to acres?
2.2 acres in a hectare.
Oh, wow. So she has quite a lot of land. I
Yeah,
only
that's a
30
lot.
acres.
That's a lot. So the only thing we kind of don't have on your maps, Marie, are up-to-date photos. But Shasta, this is all the kind of stuff that you can get if you do a drone flight properly. Right. Now we were taking these off of older satellite images. But oh yeah, here we go. We have all this stuff for you, Marie. So what we don't have is this doesn't give like it doesn't look so much like this anymore because the vegetation profile has changed. But in terms of like where the water is going, how the slopes are facing, all of that stuff we kind of have. And like broadly speaking, we already designed all the kind of water capture systems and the first things. What we're really looking to do now is like fine tune the design with the person who's going to build it, but it sounds like that's basically where you're stuck.
Yeah, I think I can find a person to do some of the, if we're using a machine, I think I can find somebody, but I'm not positive of that. My son-in-law has turned out to be a thorn in my side, and and of course Matt sort of disappeared into the money world because he had to. He lost so much money on his first endeavors. And then these other people are more talk than they are actually doing. So
all right, well look, let's you and I get on a call and I'm going to see what we can do in terms of organizing an event because I think that would just solve a huge amount of problems and it would also help to advance some of you fledgling teachers and designers how to really kind of make a stir. Okay, so that's cool. The other thing I wanted to share with you guys, for those of you maybe thinking of taking a trip to Guatemala or sending a kid to Guatemala. So, oh no, it's not here. The other thing I wanted to share, I sent these photos in the group. So if you guys remember the talk I gave a couple of weeks ago on building, and I talked a lot about the problems I had in the natural building world, right? Like building cob houses, building bajareke houses, and how kind of ultimately very labor intensive it was, and how ultimately no one was really able to make any money doing it. This is a big problem in third world countries, right? Topography tends to be very unforgiving. It's part of the reason the countries are poor in the first place. Topography tends to be very unforgiving, and processes tend to be very labor intensive. So that actually kind of almost creates a vicious circle within the country where the whole economy gets dependent on labor intensive things that are by definition not very well paid. So a lot of people then when they go to natural building and permaculture, they actually create even more labor intensive processes than the existing ones. And then are kind of surprised when they don't work or catch on. So the idea here is to build houses similar to the ones we've built before, but the latest design we're coming up with is this. It's kind of like to have a stem wall that goes along the bottom and then anchoring in with rebar a kind of wood frame. Now, the idea with this wood frame is that you would cut it and send it ready to assemble with all the drill bits in it. You'd basically build this in a workshop.
Hey Neil, I've got a quick question about your footing.
Yeah.
Is there any like subterranean aspect of footing here in Mexico?
Yes. Yeah.
We're doing like a pretty significant buried one.
Yeah, you need to dig this down and like create a stem wall that's rooted into the ground. And then you would actually have cement columns going along here and across the top here. right? So I can do a more detailed drawing of this, but basically this rebar here is going all the way down into this, right? So building that's very easy, and not very labor intensive because it's not a very heavy structure. So the whole point really of this design is to keep out the weight, because you just don't want people carrying things, especially in countries where you don't need thick walls. And you also don't want people making shit up on site, like trying to do proper carpentry joinery with like a handsaw and a chisel, right? Like you want to cut these so that they're ready to fit together, and that all makes the structure stronger and cuts down on labor, right? And then the next idea is to do into that frame, we put in just rebars, right? And onto those rebars, then we tie this split bamboo stuff that we built our last houses out of, right? This stuff here. Okay, it's called esterilla de bamboo. It's just split bamboo panels. Now, again, doing them on site is a nightmare, but making them to order is actually very, very affordable. It's kind of like comparable with drywall, basically. And then what you do is you tie those onto, you put wire through this stuff and back around the other side. You tie them on, and then you cover over that where you've tied it with bamboo. And so then you put in here on the inside of the house, these rebars shouldn't be showing, right? You won't see them actually. This is AI drawing. So there's a few mistakes in it, but you basically make like a false bamboo wall, and into that you put your like electrical cables, and whatever else. And this design has some mistakes in it, by the way, I will just say that. And then you just plaster over the outside of it. All right. Now, this is the way we did the last house. So that's the stem wall there. And then that's what I mean by this. It has like cement columns going down and across the top of it. That's called like a cement screed, right? And that's where, but it can be like, it only needs to be dug down like 2 feet into the ground because what's on top of it is so light. So our next goal here on site is we want to build a house in this style, and we want to do it while training a local team. And then that becomes another essentially product that I can sell when I do permaculture designs. But I won't have anything to do with that business except for selling on the designs. I don't want to have those employees. I want a team of local guys to figure out exactly how to do that, how much it costs, and then I want to be able to say, yo, your cabins will go perfect in my design. Because basically in my designs, what I'll be doing is saying, yeah, your piece of land is beautiful. You can do all these cool things, especially if you set up drainage systems and irrigation systems. The only thing is conventional building is going to cost a fortune because of the topography and yada yada. And it's like, oh, and look, there's a solution. It's this local builder, right, who's going to pay me a commission. And that's what I'm kind of talking about, right? Just setting up something that creates wealth, because the guy who owns the business, that's what we need in third world countries. We need more local business owners who are providing value in a way that's ecological. So that's what this house is. Super ecological. It's built out of bamboo. It's super climate specific. It solves 4 or 5 pressing problems, and it's fast to build and fast to install. And a local building team can make a lot of money out of doing it. Does that make sense?
So you can think of West Virginia almost as a third world country embedded in a system of stupid rules and regulations you have to go by that don't make any sense in the long run because they haven't taken anything into consideration that we ever talk about, as they don't in any regular community. But this is even worse because the mentality here where I live is third world. I don't really think they know what's going on in the real world. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, all the more reason, Marie, because I think a place like yours, the way I would look at it is if you were to do things properly, that could be like an incubator business. That could be a place
exactly.
where people come and actually learn these skills and then go out and meet other, because there's bound to be other like open-minded people. And what I'm
Oh yeah.
seeing more and more is like when the system is extremely inefficient and like the bigger systems get, like sort of big nation states and centralized governments, the bigger they get, the more inflexible and almost stupid they get. So if you can find room to sort of maneuver within that, um,
Yeah.
then you can sort of do a lot actually. So I think a lot of it, so if we can figure out how to do that type of event, I'm convinced you see that at those events, the right people just show up. Someone will show up that I was like, yeah, I just started a landscaping company and I kind of want to know how to do this. It's like, great, we'll show you how, right?
Yeah.
And then for like I say, I think this could be a great one for people like Jamie, right? It's just like you can just almost become like a traveling band if you want to take off for a couple of months with the family and go around and like transform spaces, teach a lot of people. Like you can be like Johnny Appleseed, basically.
That doesn't sound like a bad way of living. You know,
I could see you doing it.
travel around. I
I
mean,
could,
I already got a nursery of trees and building air prune boxes. I mean,
dude.
doing it. Like I
I
said, that's
mean,
my play. Like I do it too much though. Clearly
but
direction.
but that's like you're doing it, so it's just like just do it in other places and teach. Like when I think of someone like you, I'm like, if I was like a rich guy with two kids, but I like didn't know how to use my hands or do anything, I would probably pay someone like Jamie to come and like build some shit with me and teach me how to use power tools and like be a better example to my kids, and help me design the garden. And I'd probably work with him for a year until I was like do that stuff myself. Like, there's like no end of niches of customers if you find something that you're like, this is awesome. I can't wait to get out of bed and do this.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like I'm thinking Mr. Rogers of permaculture type stuff. You know, just make kids interested in growing stuff. It's not hard.
It's not
No.
like it's not. Oh man, that's awesome. Um, okay, well, I've said all I want to say. Does anyone have any comments or questions before we hang it up?
Yeah, I have a quick one.
Go for it.
Um, I have my two girls are going to a forced kindergarten, and the it's a very small kindergarten. There's like 9 kids, so 9 families, and actually 8 because 2 of them are mine. Um, we're trying to build like a little outdoor kitchen, and we went into a little bit of a project of how can we build it in a natural building way. And I even spoke with the Tyler, who is on these calls sometimes, to kind of like get an idea of how we can go about it. And we're talking Austin, so everything is very rocky. It's not easy to dig, but there's also a lot of limestone, so there's resources. I ran through a very quick calculation, and I found that it's easily uh, $10,000 to $20,000, and that's not something. I'm happy that you're giving this look, because maybe you were like, "What are you talking about? This could be done in $36." Um, I don't know how to go about it other than kind of like Googling and researching. And I actually have 3 of the dads are builders, so they're all like, "Oh, I can bring leftovers wood. Oh, I can give my work for free." But none of them is a natural builder. So it's kind of, I think it's going to be on me to come up with a design and then convince them, and then find it in a way that it's going to be cheap enough that it's even feasible to go and start doing.
Yeah, look, the easiest way to save money, right, with natural building, especially if you have free labor, is use whatever shit you've got lying around on the ground to fill the walls, right? So people give all these natural building courses, and it's crazy because they focus on like one specific technique. So like, this is how you do rammed earth house. Like rammed earth houses are like a horrible idea for almost everyone, right? Like, and there's also like seemingly endless techniques, and the right technique is what's the shit that's on the ground in the place you live, and then figure out how to put that in your walls. The end, right? Like,
Yeah,
so if I remember, in your case, you have a lot of like rocks and pebbles, right?
yeah, very rocky.
Yeah. So the way I would do that is, um, I would build, especially if you've got free wood, I would build some kind of stud frame, keep it as light as possible, and then I would take the pebbles and I would mix them with like probably a bit of cement and sand, right? And I would make form boards and I would just chuck them in, fool around with a couple of mixtures. You want to find something that kind of goes in and sets and dries, but like, and just dump that shit in there.
So
Um,
making my own slab, kind of, just from
yeah, and then you just plaster over the outside of it.
and that's my floor.
That's no, that's your wall.
Yeah, I'm happy to keep it open. I want a floor and a roof, basically.
Okay, well then do your floor out of that. Um,
Yeah,
and there's no way like some vertical posts and what they call travesaños here. The other thing you have a shit ton of, and I bet he wouldn't mind if you cut a bunch of it, is you have like all these amazing living life posts.
yeah, the cedars.
Those cedars, do like cedar posts and then like 2x4 roof, and you can probably get all of that for free um and draw it properly and build. Like, the thing to do if you want builds to be easy and you want to keep money down is like build your frames on the ground. So put in your vertical posts and then build your ceiling frame on the ground, like lift it up and over, screw it on, and you're done.
But I feel like I need a little more from you on that. If we maybe can, I can start drawing something and then just get some direction.
Draw it, and you can bring one of those crews to one of those guys who builds to the design session.
What is the design session? I don't know if I have that
So
invite.
we're gonna put on an extra call a month, an extra two calls if necessary,
Mhm.
to help people specifically on design issues.
Oh,
Right?
kind of flowers.
Yeah, yeah,
Cool.
yeah, yeah. Because some of that will be boring to the wider group, because some of it is just going to be like, this is how you get your map into concepts, or this is how, like,
Yeah,
you're going to have to redraw this stud, this frame this way, or it's so specifically for like design, how to use tools, how to talk through technical issues of designs.
yeah.
Okay. Um, and
Okay.
it's yeah, yeah, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Great. Be happy to be part of it.
wonderful. All right, you guys. You know what no one ever says at the end of their life? I pray too much. So let's just like leave it with a prayer. You guys want to close your eyes for a second? And I just want to pray today for a miracle, for emergence, that we can all connect to the timeline that Shasta was talking about, the one of creativity, positivity, and the version of ourselves that knows that miracles happen every day. Amen. Peace, many blessings.